Have you ever given everything to someone only to watch them walk away the moment they no longer needed you? Have you ever looked back at your life and wondered where all the years went? Where all your sacrifices went? Where all your love went? Today I'm sharing my story. My painful, raw, unfiltered story. And I need you to tell me something honestly. Tell me if I was a fool for loving too much. Tell me if I was naive for believing in forever. Or tell me if he was just another man who forgot where he came from the second he got what he wanted. Please, I'm begging you, stay with me through this. I know it's going to be long. I know some parts are going to be painful to hear. But I need to get this off my chest. I've been carrying this weight for too long and I need to share it with someone, anyone who will listen. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere out there, there's a woman who needs to hear this story before she makes the same mistakes I did. Maybe there's someone who's currently in the position I was in, giving everything, sacrificing everything, believing that love conquers all. If that's you, please keep watching. Because what I'm about to share might save you years of heartbreak. So grab your tea, get comfortable, and let me tell you about the 7 years of my life that I'll never get back. That I honestly never thought my life would turn out this way. You know, when I was younger, I had this vision of what my life would be. I saw myself married by 30, with children by 32, living in a beautiful home with a man who loved me as much as I loved him. I saw family dinners, laughter, growth, partnership. I saw forever. But life, as I've learned the hard way, doesn't always follow the script we write in our heads. That I've always been the kind of woman who believed in doing things right. And I mean really doing things right. I went to church every Sunday without fail. I prayed every morning and every night. I fasted when I was supposed to fast. I gave to charity. I helped my neighbors. I treated people with kindness and respect, even when they didn't deserve it. I was that woman, the good girl, the responsible one, the one everyone said would make a good wife someday. If you had asked me back then if I believed in karma, in divine justice, in the idea that good things happen to good people, I would have said yes without any hesitation. I believed that if you did right by people, they would do right by you. I believed that love was enough. I believed that loyalty mattered. But now, as I sit here trying to piece together the fragments of my broken heart, I'm not so sure anymore. Now I wonder if maybe I was just naive. If maybe the world doesn't work the way I thought it did. Let me take you back to 2017. That's when everything started. That's when I met him, the man who would become my everything, my reason for waking up every morning, my hope for the future, and eventually my greatest heartbreak. We were both in school at the time, trying to figure out our lives, chasing dreams that felt so close yet so far away. You know how it is when you're in that phase of life. You're not quite where you want to be, but you're working toward it. You're full of hope and ambition and this naive belief that if you just work hard enough, everything will fall into place. He wasn't the most handsome man I'd ever seen. I'll be honest about that. He wasn't the type that would make you stop and stare when he walked into a room. He didn't have that kind of presence. But there was something about him. Something that drew me in. Maybe it was his ambition. He was always talking about his dreams, about the kind of life he wanted to build. He would talk for hours about his plans, his goals, the kind of man he wanted to become. And I loved that about him. I loved his drive, his determination, his refusal to accept mediocrity. Or maybe it was the way he looked at me. Like I was the only woman in the world. Like I was special. Like I mattered. Do you know how rare that is? To have someone look at you and really see you? Not just your physical appearance, but you, your soul, your heart, your essence. We started dating that year and honestly it felt like everything just clicked. You know that feeling when you meet someone and it's like the universe is telling you, this is it. This is the 1 inch. That's exactly how it felt. It was like all the pieces of my life that had been scattered suddenly came together to form this beautiful picture. Our first date was nothing fancy. We didn't go to some expensive restaurant or some elaborate event. We just walked around campus talking about everything and nothing. We talked about our childhoods, our families, our fears, our hopes. We talked until the sun went down and the security guards started making their rounds. And even then we didn't want the night to end. I remember thinking that night, lying in my bed, replaying every moment of our conversation, this is different. This man is different. This could be something real. And it was real. At least it felt real at the time. Before long we moved in together. And I know what some of you might be thinking right now. I can hear it already. Why would you live with a man who hasn't married you? Why would you play wife without the ring? Don't you know that men won't buy the cow if they can get the milk for free? Trust me, I've heard all the lectures. I've heard all the warnings. And you know what? I've asked myself that same question 1,000 times since then. 1,000 times I've wondered if that was my first mistake. If that was the moment I should have stood my ground and said, no, we do this properly or not at all. But at the time it made sense. It felt right. We were young, we were in love, and everyone around us knew we were together. It wasn't like we were hiding anything or sneaking around. We were a couple fully committed, fully invested in each other. Our friends knew. Our neighbors knew. Even the school authorities knew. We were that couple. You know the type. The ones who are always together. The ones who finish each other's sentences. The ones who people point to and say, see them? That's what real love looks like. That's what it means to be a team. We were inseparable. If you saw me, you saw him. If you saw him, you saw me. We studied together, ate together, laughed together, dreamed together that we were building a life, or at least I thought we were. People used to tell us all the time, when are you two getting married? You've been together for how long now? What are you waiting for? By now you should be planning a wedding. And every single time someone said that, my heart would skip a beat. I would smile and look at him, waiting for him to say something. Waiting for him to confirm that yes, marriage was in our future. Waiting for him to take that next step. To make it official. To show the world that I wasn't just his girlfriend but his future wife. But he would just laugh it off. Soon, he would say with that charming smile of his. When the time is right. When I'm more settled. When I have more to offer. Then I would convince myself that we had time. That he was just being responsible. That he wanted to be in a better position before taking that step. And honestly, I respected that. I respected that he wanted to be stable before starting a family. That's what a responsible man does, right? If only I knew then what I know now. If only I had understood that soon is the most dangerous word in the dictionary. That when the time is right sometimes means never. That when I'm more settled can turn into an excuse that lasts forever. But I didn't know. I was young and in love and stupid enough to believe that patience and loyalty would be rewarded. I believed that if I just waited a little longer, if I just proved my love a little more, if I just showed him that I was the perfect partner, he would eventually make me his wife. So I waited. And I waited. And I gave. And I gave. And I convinced myself that our time was coming. Little did I know I was investing in a future that would never come. But before I tell you how it all fell apart, before I get to the part that still makes me cry every time I think about it, you need to understand what we went through together. Because that's what makes this whole thing so painful. That's what makes his betrayal cut so deep that I wasn't just some girlfriend who was around for the good times. I wasn't just there for the Instagram moments, the cute dates, the fun weekends. No. I was there when there were no good times at all. I was there when things were dark and difficult and seemingly hopeless. Life wasn't easy for him. Actually, let me be honest with you, that's an understatement. Life was hard. Really, really hard. He was struggling to find his footing in a world that seemed determined to keep him down. He was struggling to get a decent job in an economy where opportunities were scarce and competition was fierce. He was struggling to make ends meet, to pay his bills, to afford the basic necessities of life. And I saw it all. I witnessed every struggle, every setback, every disappointment. I saw the frustration in his eyes when another job application got rejected. I saw the way his shoulders would slump when he checked his email and found yet another, "We regret to inform you" message. I saw the way his voice would crack when he had to ask me for help with something because he literally had no other option. I saw him at his lowest. And you know what? I didn't mind. I really truly didn't mind. Because that's what love is, isn't it? Love isn't just about being there for the highlights. It's about being there for the low points too. It's about standing beside your partner when the world is against them. It's about being their rock when everything else is crumbling. I loved this man. I loved him with everything I had. And when you love someone like that, you don't keep score. You don't calculate what you're giving versus what you're getting. You don't walk around with a mental ledger of who owes who what. You just give. You support. You encourage. You lift them up. You believe in them even when they struggle to believe in themselves. So that's what I did. I gave everything I had. I worked extra shifts at my job. I would take the morning shift and the evening shift, working from dawn until late at night, coming home exhausted but determined to make enough money for both of us. I took on side jobs, anything I could find. I sold things online. I did freelance work. I tutored students. I did whatever it took to make sure we had enough. I cut back on my own expenses drastically. I stopped buying new clothes. I stopped going out with my friends because I couldn't afford it. I stopped treating myself to the little luxuries that make life bearable, the occasional nice meal, the new shoes I'd been eyeing, the spa day I desperately needed. All of that went out the window because the money I saved on myself could go toward helping him. When he was hungry, I made sure he ate, even if it meant I went to bed on an empty stomach. I would cook a meal, serve him a full plate, and tell him I'd already eaten or that I wasn't hungry. I would watch him eat, feeling my own stomach grumble, and tell myself that it was worth it. That his well-being was more important than my discomfort. When he was discouraged, when he felt like giving up, when he would sit there with his head in his hands talking about how nothing was working out, I was his cheerleader. I was his biggest supporter. I was the voice telling him not to give up. Don't give up, I would tell him, taking his face in my hands and forcing him to look at me. Your breakthrough is coming. I can feel it. I know it. You're destined for great things. This is just a season. It's not permanent. Better days are coming. And I believed it. God, I believed it with every fiber of my being. I believed that we were going through the struggle together so that we could enjoy the success together. I believed that every sacrifice I was making was an investment in our shared future. I remember one particular night. It was raining heavily, one of those storms where you can barely see 2 feet in front of you. He had gone for yet another job interview and I was home waiting for him. Hours passed. My phone had no credit to call him. I was pacing back and forth, worried, sick, praying he was okay. Finally, around 10 p.m. he came through the door. He was soaking wet, shivering, his interview clothes clinging to his body. And the look on his face. I knew immediately that it hadn't gone well. He didn't say a word. He just stood there in the doorway, water dripping onto the floor, looking defeated. And my heart broke for him. I rushed to get him a towel to help him out of his wet clothes, to make him hot tea. And then we sat on the floor because we couldn't even afford a proper couch, and he cried. He cried like a child. He cried like someone who had reached the end of their rope. And he said to me, maybe I'm just not meant to succeed. Maybe I'm just not good enough. And I held him. I held him tight and I told him that wasn't true. I told him he was brilliant and capable and that the world just hadn't recognized it yet. I told him that I believed in him. That I would always believe in him. And you want to know the craziest part? Even now, even after everything, I still meant those words. I did believe in him. I saw his potential even when he couldn't see it himself. And then 2020 came. The year that changed everything. The year that I thought would be our breakthrough but turned out to be the beginning of the end. He found an opportunity. A real job opportunity. The kind that could change his life. The kind that came with a stable salary, benefits, respect, a future. It was everything he had been working toward, everything we had been hoping and praying for. But there was a catch. Of course there was a catch. It required money up front. In this country, you know how it is. Nothing comes free. Every opportunity has a price tag. Registration fees, processing fees, facilitation fees. All those fancy words that basically mean, pay up or lose your chance. And he didn't have the money. How could he? He had been struggling to find work for years. He had no savings. No assets. Nothing, but I did. I had been saving bit by bit from all those extra shifts and side jobs. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was my security, my safety net, my just-in-case fund. I didn't even hesitate. I know that sounds crazy now looking back. But at the time it felt like the obvious choice. This was the man I loved. This was the man I was planning to spend my life with. His success was my success. His breakthrough was our breakthrough. I gathered everything I had. I went to my friends and asked to borrow money, promising to pay them back as soon as possible. Some of them looked at me with concern and asked if I was sure about this. One friend even pulled me aside and said, "Are you sure he's going to marry you? Because if he's not, this is a huge risk." And you know what I did? I laughed. I actually laughed and told her she was being pessimistic. Of course he was going to marry me. We'd been together for years. We lived together. We were committed. This wasn't some casual fling. This was my partner, my future husband. I even took a loan from a microfinance bank. Yes, I put myself in debt for this man. I signed papers committing to monthly repayments at interest rates that made my head spin. But I did it anyway because I believed in us. I believed in our future. In total, I paid 99% of the money needed to secure that job for him. That's not an exaggeration. That's not me being dramatic. 99%. He only managed to contribute a tiny fraction. something like 1% from some money a distant relative had sent him. But did I care about the percentage? Did I sit there calculating who was contributing more? No, not even for a second. Because I thought we were a team. I thought we were building something together. I thought I was investing in our future, not just his. I thought that once he got on his feet, once he started earning a good salary, we would finally take that next step. We would get married. We would start planning for children. We would build the life we had always talked about during those long nights when we dreamed out loud about our future together. I thought I was helping my future husband. I thought I was securing our family's future. I didn't know I was funding my own replacement. I didn't know I was paying for him to be in a position where he could afford to leave me. I didn't know I was investing in my own heartbreak. But that's exactly what I was doing. I just didn't know it yet. Now I need you to pause for a moment. I need you to really think about this. I need your honest opinion here because I've spent months asking myself if I was wrong. If you were in my position, if you had given 99% of your hard-earned savings, money you had sacrificed and saved and even borrowed to accumulate, to help someone you love get a job, what would you expect in return? And I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about him paying me back financially. That's not what this is about. I'm talking about respect, commitment, gratitude, loyalty. I'm talking about him recognizing what you did for him and honoring that sacrifice by building a future with you. Am I wrong to have expected that? Am I wrong to have thought that the man I invested in, the man I believed in, the man I literally put myself in debt for, would appreciate what I did and want to make me his wife? Was I being unreasonable? Was I expecting too much? Or did I have every right to expect commitment from someone I had committed everything to? Please let me know what you think in the comments. Because I genuinely need to know if I was being foolish or if I had every right to feel betrayed by what happened next. And trust me, what happened next will make you question everything you thought you knew about loyalty and love and gratitude. It will make you wonder how someone can be so cold, so calculating, so utterly devoid of appreciation. So drop your thoughts below. Tell me if you think I was wrong. Tell me if you would have done things differently. Tell me if I'm justified in my pain or if I'm just being overly emotional. Because what I'm about to share next, it still doesn't feel real. It still feels like a nightmare I'm waiting to wake up from. He got the job. Finally, after all the struggle, after all the years of rejection and disappointment, after all the tears and frustration, he got the job. And I was over the moon. I was so genuinely, deeply, completely happy for him. For us. I remember the day he came home with the news. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I had just gotten back from work, exhausted as usual, and I was about to start preparing dinner when I heard his key in the door. He burst in with this huge smile on his face, and before he could even say anything, I knew. I just knew. I got it, he said, and his voice was shaking with excitement. I got the job. I screamed. I literally screamed so loud that our neighbors probably thought something terrible had happened. But it wasn't terror, it was pure, unfiltered joy. I jumped up and down like a child. I grabbed him and hugged him so tight I'm surprised he could breathe. I cried tears of happiness. I thanked God over and over and over again. Because finally, all the struggle was worth it. All the sacrifices I had made had paid off. All those nights I went to bed hungry, all those extra shifts I worked, all those loans I took, it had all led to this moment. Our breakthrough. Our new beginning. I was so happy. So incredibly, naively happy. I genuinely believed this was the beginning of something beautiful. I believed that now that he was stable and secure and had a good job, we could finally move forward. We could finally plan our wedding. We could finally start our family. We could finally build the life we had always dreamed about. But you know what they say about money and success. Changes people. And oh, did it change him? Did it ever change him? At first, the changes were subtle. So subtle that I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid or insecure or overly sensitive. He started coming home later. Not drastically later at first, just 30 minutes here, an hour there. When I asked about it, he had perfectly reasonable explanations. Oh, I had to finish up some work. My boss needed me to handle something. There was traffic. All logical, all believable, all probably true at first. He started being more secretive with his phone. He would turn it face down when he set it on the table. He would take calls in the other room. He would angle his screen away from me when he was typing. Little things. Things I noticed but chose to ignore because I didn't want to be that woman, the insecure, jealous girlfriend who couldn't trust her partner. He started dressing better, which was good. I was happy about that actually. I wanted him to look professional and polished. I wanted him to feel confident in his new role. But there was something different about it. Something about the way he carried himself. Like he had suddenly realized that he was more important, more valuable, more desirable. He started spending more time on his appearance. Hair appointments, new cologne, better shoes. And again, on the surface, these are all good things. But there was something in the way he presented himself that felt like it wasn't for me anymore. Like he was dressing to impress someone, but that someone wasn't the woman who had supported him through everything. And then came the conversations about marriage. Or rather, the lack of conversations about marriage. The complete and utter avoidance of anything related to our future together. Before the job, whenever people asked him about when he was going to marry me, he would say things like, soon. When I'm more stable. And I accepted that. It made perfect sense. A man wants to be financially secure before taking that step. I understood that. I respected that. I was willing to wait. But now? Now that he had the job? Now that he was earning a good salary? Now that he was stable and secure and had everything he said he needed to be ready for marriage? Suddenly, marriage became a joke to him. A topic he would brush off with a casual laugh or a dismissive wave of his hand. We're still young, he would say, not even looking at me when he said it. Just throwing the words over his shoulder like they meant nothing. Still young? Still young. I am 40 years old. 40. Do you understand what that means? I'm not some 25-year-old girl who has all the time in the world. I'm not someone who can afford to wait another 5 or 10 years to start a family. My biological clock isn't just ticking, it's practically screaming at me. How young am I supposed to be before we take this seriously? How many more years am I supposed to wait? I had already given him 7 years of my life at that point. 7 years of my youth. 7 years of my prime reproductive years. 7 years of standing by him, supporting him, believing in him, sacrificing for him. And his response to my very reasonable concerns about our future? We're still young. Like I was being unreasonable. Like I was rushing him. Like I hadn't already waited long enough. Do you know what that does to a woman? Do you know what it feels like to realize that the man you've sacrificed everything for doesn't even see you as a priority anymore? To realize that now that he's successful, now that he has options, he's suddenly not in a hurry to commit to you? It broke something inside me. Something fundamental shifted in that moment. Because I finally understood what was happening. He didn't need me anymore. When he was struggling, when he had nothing, I was valuable. I was necessary. I was the person keeping him afloat. But now that he had money and status and success, I was just there. A remnant from his past. A reminder of when he was nothing. And maybe that's what I had become to him. Not his partner, not his future wife, but a symbol of a version of himself he wanted to forget. But I still wasn't ready to accept that. I still wanted to believe in us. So I stayed. I kept hoping. I kept praying. I kept believing that this was just a phase, that he was just adjusting to his new job and his new status, and that eventually he would come back to himself. Come back to us. I stayed because I'm a woman of faith. Because I believe in fighting for what you love. Because walking away felt like admitting that all those years, all those sacrifices, all that love were for nothing. It felt like accepting defeat. And I wasn't ready to do that. So I stayed. And I watched day by day as the man I loved slowly became a stranger. As the man I had built up forgot who helped him get there. As the man I had sacrificed everything for started treating me like I was an inconvenience rather than a blessing. And through it all, I kept telling myself it would get better. It had to get better. Because the alternative, that I had wasted 7 years of my life on someone who would throw me away the moment he no longer needed me, was too painful to accept. But deep down in that place we don't like to acknowledge, I knew. I knew it was over. I just wasn't ready to face it yet. But what came next was even worse than the delays and the excuses and the broken promises. Because at least those I could rationalize. At least those I could explain away. At least those didn't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he had no respect for me whatsoever. What came next were the lies. The blatant, disrespectful, in-your-face lies that made it clear that he didn't even value me enough to be honest with me. It started with small things. Phone calls. I would call him and ask a simple question, "Hey, are you home?" And he would say no. He would tell me he was out somewhere, handling something, stuck in traffic, meeting with someone. And I would believe him. Why wouldn't I? This was the man I loved. This was my partner. We'd been together for years. Of course I believed him. But then little inconsistencies would pop up. His friend would mention seeing him at home at the exact time he told me he wasn't there. Or I would hear background noises on the phone call that didn't match his story, the sound of his TV or his neighbor's voice, or something that could only be heard if he was at his house. And when I would confront him gently, not accusingly but just asking for clarification, he would double down. He would look me dead in the eye and swear. I swear to God I wasn't home. Why would I lie to you about something so small? You're being paranoid. And he would say it with such conviction, with such indignation at being questioned, that I would end up apologizing. Me. I would apologize for not trusting him, for doubting him, for being insecure. Can you believe that? He would lie to my face and somehow I would end up being the one apologizing. But the lies got bigger. More frequent. More insulting. He would tell me he was working late, but his Instagram story would show him at a bar or a restaurant. He would say he was with his male friends, but in the background of someone's photo, I would see a woman sitting next to him. He would claim he had no money to contribute to house expenses, but then I would see new designer clothes in his closet or new shoes he couldn't have afforded if he was really as broke as he claimed. And every time I questioned him, every time I pointed out the inconsistencies, he had an explanation ready. The Instagram story was from earlier in the day. That woman was just a colleague. The clothes were a gift from someone. On and on and on, an endless stream of explanations and excuses and justifications. The worst part wasn't even the lies themselves. The worst part was what the lies meant. They meant he didn't respect me enough to tell me the truth. They meant he thought I was stupid enough to believe his obviously false stories. They meant he valued whatever he was hiding more than he valued our relationship. At first I tried to rationalize it. I tried to create innocent explanations in my mind. Maybe he was planning a surprise for me. Maybe he was working on something special for our relationship. Maybe he was saving up to propose properly and didn't want me to know about his secret plans. My mind created all these beautiful, hopeful narratives because I couldn't accept the ugly truth that was staring me in the face. I couldn't accept that the man I had sacrificed everything for, the man I had built up from nothing, was lying to me because there was someone else. Because he was living a double life. Because he had already started moving on even while I was still holding on. But deep down I knew. You know how women have intuition. How we can sense when something is wrong even when we can't prove it. That's what I had. This constant, nagging feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. This persistent voice in my head telling me to open my eyes and see what was really happening. You ever been in that space? Where you know the truth but you're too scared to face it. Where accepting reality means accepting that everything you believed in was a lie. Where opening your eyes fully means having to make decisions you're not ready to make. That's where I was. Living in this strange limbo between knowing and not knowing. Seeing but pretending not to see. Understanding but refusing to accept. I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, while he slept peacefully beside me. And I would wonder, was I going crazy? Was I being paranoid and irrational? Or was I ignoring what was right in front of me because I was too scared to lose him? Sometimes I would pick up his phone when he was in the shower. My hands would shake as I tried to unlock it, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. But the phone was always locked with a new password. And every time I asked about it, he would say he changed it for security reasons. For security. Like I was some kind of threat he needed to protect himself from. I would check his social media looking for clues, looking for evidence, looking for something. Discover in the most painful way possible, was even more devastating than my worst fears. The reality was more humiliating than anything my paranoid mind had imagined. And when I finally saw it, when the truth was finally shoved in my face in a way I couldn't deny or rationalize or explain away, it destroyed me. Completely and utterly destroyed me. And if you think that was bad, if you think the lies and the disrespect and the gradual distancing were painful, wait until you hear what happened yesterday. Wait until you hear about the moment that shattered whatever was left of my heart into a million pieces. But before I tell you about that moment, before I relive the most humiliating experience of my life, I need you to do something for me. I need you to engage with this story. I need to know that someone out there is listening, that someone understands, that someone cares. If this story is resonating with you, if you've ever been in a situation where you loved someone more than they loved you, if you've ever given everything to someone who gave you nothing back, drop a comment. Just say, I've been there, or I understand, or you're not alone. Because right now, as I relive this pain, as I expose my wounds to thousands of strangers on the internet, I need to know that it matters. That my story matters. That my pain is valid. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, a friend who's in a one-sided relationship, a sister who's giving too much to someone who doesn't appreciate her, a daughter who's losing herself in love with someone unworthy, please share this video. Please send it to them. Because maybe my heartbreak can save someone else from going through the same thing. Because what I'm about to share next, it's the part that still doesn't feel real. The part that keeps replaying in my mind like a nightmare I can't wake up from. The part that makes me question everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty and human decency. So please stay with me. I know this is long. I know this is painful. But I promise you this story has a lesson. Even if I'm still figuring out what that lesson is. Are you ready? Because here comes the moment that changed everything. The moment that finally opened my eyes. The moment I can never unsee. Yesterday. Just yesterday. Less than 24 hours ago as I'm recording this. That's when everything I had been denying, everything I had been afraid to face, everything I had been pushing to the back of my mind, became impossible to ignore. Let me set the scene for you because I want you to understand exactly what happened. I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to see what I saw. It was a Saturday afternoon. The weather was nice. Sunny but not too hot, a light breeze. The kind of day that usually makes you feel hopeful, makes you feel like good things are possible. I had finished my morning shift at work and I was heading home when something in me said, go to his place. I hadn't told him I was coming. For the first time in our relationship, I didn't call ahead. I didn't text to say I was on my way. I didn't ask if it was a good time. I just went. Maybe some part of me knew that if I announced my visit, I wouldn't find what I needed to find. Maybe my intuition was finally screaming loud enough that I couldn't ignore it anymore. Maybe I was just tired of the lies, tired of the doubts, tired of living in this constant state of uncertainty. I got to his house around 3 p.m. I remember checking my phone for the time as I approached his door, wondering why my hands were shaking. Wondering why I felt like I was about to face something life-changing. I knocked on his door. A normal knock. Not aggressive, not suspicious. Just the kind of knock I'd done 100 times before. He opened the door. And the look on his face, I should have known right then. It wasn't happiness to see me. It wasn't surprise. It wasn't even annoyance. It was something else. Something like inconvenience. Like I had interrupted something. But I didn't process that fast enough because my eyes had moved past him into the living room. And that's when I saw her. A girl. A very young girl. She couldn't have been more than 25, maybe even younger. She was wearing a casual dress, sitting comfortably on his couch. The couch we had bought together with my money, looking very much at home. He was pretty. I'll give her that. Young and pretty and fresh-faced. The kind of young that I used to be before life and heartbreak aged me. The kind of pretty that comes from not having lived through real pain yet. She looked at me when I walked in. And there wasn't shock on her face. There wasn't guilt. There wasn't even curiosity. Just this calm, almost bored expression. Like she knew who I was. Like he had told her about me. Like she had been expecting to meet me eventually, and here I was. Time seemed to slow down. I stood in that doorway looking at her, looking at him, looking at the scene in front of me, trying to process what I was seeing. Trying to understand what this meant. Trying to hold on to the last threads of denial that were quickly unraveling. And you want to know the worst part? The absolute worst part of this entire humiliating situation, he didn't even flinch. He didn't stammer or make excuses or try to explain. He didn't look guilty or caught off guard or embarrassed. There was no, this isn't what it looks like, or, I can explain, or any of the things you would expect from someone who just got caught. No. He just looked annoyed. Like I was the problem. Like I was the one who had done something wrong by showing up unannounced to my boyfriend's house. And then with the most casual voice, like he was asking her to do the most normal everyday thing in the world, he turned to this girl and said, "Serve auntie food." Serve me food. Those 3 words. 3 simple words that destroyed me more than anything else could have. Do you understand what that meant? Do you understand the layers of disrespect and betrayal packed into those 3 words? He called me auntie. Not my girlfriend. Not my partner. Not even by my name that he used to whisper sweet nothings with, my name that he used to call out when he needed me, my name that used to mean something to him. Like I was just some older woman visiting. Like I was a family friend or a distant relative. Like our 7 years together meant nothing. Like I was nobody to him. Like I was just there. Inconvenient. Old. Irrelevant. And he told her, this girl, this young girl who was sitting in his house like she owned the place, to serve me food. To serve me food. Me who had fed him when he had nothing. Me who had made sure he never went to bed hungry even when I did. Me who had cooked countless meals for him, who had taken care of him, who had been his provider in his times of need, that he had this girl serve me food like I was a guest. Like I was visiting someone else's home. Like I had no history there, no claim there, no right to be there, that I couldn't speak. I literally couldn't find words. My mouth opened but nothing came out. My brain was trying to process what was happening, trying to formulate a response, trying to figure out what to do or say. But I was frozen. What do you say in a moment like that? What do you say when you're standing face to face with your replacement? When you're watching your worst fears materialize right in front of you? When the man you gave everything to is treating you like a stranger in front of the woman he's clearly already moved on with? Do you scream? Do you cry? Do you fight? Do you demand explanations? Do you beg him to tell you this isn't what it looks like even though you know exactly what it is? I did none of those things. I just stood there staring, feeling my heart crack into pieces inside my chest. Feeling 7 years of my life flash before my eyes. Feeling every sacrifice I made, every night I went hungry, every extra shift I worked, every loan I took, all of it crystallizing into this one devastating moment. The girl stood up and went to the kitchen. She actually went to serve me food like he asked. Like this was normal. Like she was already the woman of the house and I was just a visitor who needed to be entertained. And I just stood there for what felt like an eternity but was probably only a few seconds. Standing in that living room looking at the man I loved, searching his face for some sign of the person I used to know. Some hint of remorse or guilt or humanity. But there was nothing. Just that same annoyed expression. Like I was inconveniencing him. Like I was making a scene by simply existing in his space. So I did the only thing I could do. I turned around. And quietly, with whatever shred of dignity I had left, I walked out. I didn't make a scene. I didn't shout or cry or throw things or cause drama. I didn't beg or plead or demand explanations. I left. Put one foot in front of the other and walked out of that house, out of that life, out of that nightmare. But before I could make it to the street, someone grabbed my arm. Gently, not aggressively. I turned around and it was one of his friends, a guy who had been in the back room and had witnessed the whole thing. That he looked at me with something like pity in his eyes. And he said quietly, making sure no one else could hear, "Please move on. He doesn't love you. He has already done introduction with this lady." Introduction. Traditional introduction. The first step toward marriage in our culture. The ceremony where the groom's family formally meets the bride's family. The beginning of the marriage process. The thing I had been begging for. The thing I had been waiting for. The thing I had been praying for 7 years. The thing I thought would be mine once he got stable, once he got the job, once he had the means. He had already done it. With her. With this girl I had never even heard of until this very moment. With someone who hadn't stood by him through his struggles. With someone who hadn't sacrificed anything for him. With someone who hadn't invested in him or believed in him or built him up from nothing. While I was still holding on, still hoping, still believing in us, he had already moved on. He had already found my replacement. He had already started the process of making her his wife. And the worst part? How long had this been going on? How long had she been in the picture? How long had he been planning his future with her while still accepting my love, my support, my presence in his life? How long had he been lying to my face, telling me soon we're still young, while simultaneously preparing to marry someone else? I went home. I don't even remember the journey. I must have walked or taken a bike, or maybe I flew, I don't know. I was operating on autopilot, my body moving while my mind was completely shut down. I don't remember getting to my house. I don't remember opening my door. I don't remember taking off my shoes. It's all a blur, like my brain decided that if it couldn't process what had just happened, it would just stop recording altogether. The next thing I clearly remember is sitting on my floor. Not on my bed or my chair, the floor. Like I didn't have the energy to make it to furniture. Like I had collapsed there and couldn't figure out how to get up. I just sat there, staring at the wall. Not crying, not screaming, not moving. Just existing. Barely. You know what's strange about heartbreak? When it's this big, this devastating, you can't even cry at first. Your body goes into some kind of shock where you just feel numb, Empty. Like someone reached inside you and scooped out everything that made you human and left just a shell. I tried to process what had just happened. Tried to make sense of it. Tried to understand how 7 years of my life had just evaporated. Tried to comprehend how the man I had built up, supported, financed, loved with everything I had replaced me so easily. So completely. So cruelly. All those years. All those sacrifices. All those nights I went to bed hungry so he could eat. All those extra shifts I worked. All those dreams we talked about. All those promises he made. All those times he told me he loved me. All those moments I thought we were building something together. Gone. Just gone. Like they never mattered. Like I never mattered. And you know what made it worse? I paid for this. Literally paid for it. I paid for him to be in a position where he could afford to leave me. I paid for him to have the status and security that made him attractive to other women. I paid for him to become someone who could do traditional introduction with someone else's daughter. I funded my own replacement. I invested in my own heartbreak. I sacrificed my present for a future that was never going to include me. How stupid does that make me? How foolish. How utterly blind and naive. I sat on that floor for hours, watching the sunlight fade through my window, watching the room grow dark, not bothering to turn on a light because what was the point? The darkness outside matched the darkness inside me. And then around 11 p.m. my phone rang. At first I didn't even want to look at it. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to explain what had happened. I didn't want to hear sympathy or advice or, "I told you so," from friends who had warned me about him. But the phone kept ringing. And when I finally picked it up and looked at the screen, I saw his name. He was calling me. The same man who had just humiliated me. The same man who had called me auntie in front of his new girlfriend. The same man who had already started the marriage process with someone else. He was calling me. You want to know what he called to ask? You want to know what was so important that he needed to call me just hours after destroying my entire world? He called to ask if I got home safely. Can you imagine? Can you actually wrap your head around that level of, what? Audacity? Cruelty? Delusion? The same man who had just shown me in the clearest possible way that I meant nothing to him, that I was just auntie, that he had already moved on and started planning a life with someone else. That same man called to check if I got home safely. Like he cared. Like he was concerned. Like he had the right to play the role of protective boyfriend after what he had just done. For a split second, one tiny stupid moment, I thought maybe he was calling to explain. To apologize. To tell me that what I saw wasn't what I thought. To give me some explanation that would make sense of the nightmare I had just lived through. But I should have known better. When I answered, my voice barely above a whisper, he didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He didn't even acknowledge what had happened. He just asked in this weirdly casual tone, "Did you get home?" And I said yes. And then with a coldness that pierced straight through my soul, with a tone so detached you would think he was talking to a stranger, with a finality that left no room for argument or discussion or hope, he said, "I don't think this will work again. I don't think this will work again. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I can explain. Not, let's talk about this. Not, thank you for everything you've done for me. Not even an acknowledgement of what we had been through together, what I had sacrificed, what I had given. Just, I don't think this will work again." Like we were business partners discussing a failed project. Like we were casual acquaintances deciding not to pursue a friendship. Like 7 years meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. That was it. That was all I got. 7 years of my life, 7 years of sacrifices, 7 years of love and loyalty and dedication, distilled into one cold, dismissive sentence. I don't think this will work again. I didn't even argue. What was the point? You can't force someone to love you. You can't force someone to appreciate your sacrifices. You can't force someone to see your value when they've already decided you're worthless. You can't make someone honor the history you share when they've already rewritten it in their mind. So I just said, okay. One word. That's all I could manage. Okay. And I hung up, and that was it. 7 years of my life. 7 years of love. 7 years of hoping and praying and sacrificing and believing. Gone. Finished. Over, just like that. And you know what the craziest part is? Even after all of that, even after the humiliation and the betrayal and the coldness, a part of me, a stupid, stubborn, hopeful part of me, still wanted him to call back. Still wanted him to say he made a mistake. Still wanted him to realize what he was throwing away and fight for us. But he didn't. The phone didn't ring again that night. Or the next morning. Or ever. Because why would it? He had already replaced me. He had already found someone younger. Someone who didn't remind him of his struggles. Someone who didn't come with the baggage of shared history and sacrifices that he was done with me. And he wanted to make sure I knew it, that I didn't sleep that night. Or the next night. Or the night after that. I've barely slept since it happened. Because every time I close my eyes I see it. I see her sitting on that couch. I hear him saying, "Serve auntie food." I feel that moment of standing there, frozen, humiliated, broken. And my mind won't stop asking questions. So many questions that I'll probably never get answers to. When did it start? When did he meet her? When did he decide she was the one and I wasn't? Was she in the picture before he got the job or after? Was he seeing her while I was still working extra shifts to help him? While I was still taking loans for him? While I was still cooking his meals and believing in our future? Did he laugh with his friends about how naive I was? Did he make jokes about the auntie who was funding his life while he planned a future with someone else? How long was he lying to me? Days? Months? Years? When he would come home and kiss my forehead and tell me he loved me, was he thinking about her? When he would accept my help and my support and my sacrifices, was he planning his exit strategy? And the question that hurts the most, what did she have that I didn't? Was it just youth? Was that all it took to make me irrelevant? The fact that she has more years ahead of her than I do? Or was it something else? Was she more beautiful? More interesting? More fun? Less demanding? Less complicated? Did she make him feel like a man in a way I didn't? Did she worship him in a way I failed to? Did she make him feel successful while I reminded him of when he was struggling? Maybe that's it. Maybe I became associated with his difficult times and she represents his success. Maybe looking at me reminded him of when he had nothing, and looking at her reminds him of everything he has now. Maybe I was the woman for his struggle but not the woman for his success. Maybe I was good enough when he needed something from me, but not good enough to stand beside him now that he has arrived. These questions circle my mind constantly. And the worst part is I'll never get answers. Because the man I would ask is gone. The person I thought I knew doesn't exist. Maybe he never existed. Maybe I was in love with a version of him that I created in my mind. But here's what really keeps me up at night. Was everything a lie? Did he ever really love me? Or was I always just convenient? Just a resource he used until he didn't need me anymore? Were those moments we shared real? Those late-night conversations where we dreamed about our future together? Was he lying then? Those times he held me and told me I was the only one for him, was that all fake? Or did he love me once and then fall out of love? So when exactly did I go from being his everything to being his auntie? And then there's the question that makes me question everything I thought I knew about myself. How did I not see this coming? Were there signs I ignored? Red flags I explained away? Warnings I dismissed because I was too in love to see clearly? My friends tried to warn me. I remember now. One friend told me, "Be careful. When a man gets successful, he sometimes forgets who was there when he had nothing." I laughed it off. I told her my man was different. He would never do that to me. Another friend asked me, "Why hasn't he married you yet? You've been together for years. What's he waiting for?" And I defended him. I made excuses. I said he wanted to be more established first. Even his own family gave me hints. His sister once said to me, "I hope my brother knows what he has in you." At the time I thought it was a compliment. Now I realize it was a warning. She was telling me that he might not appreciate me the way I deserved. But I didn't listen. I didn't want to hear it. I was so sure of our love, so confident in what we had built, that I couldn't imagine he would throw it all away. Was I stupid? Was I blind? Or was I just a woman who loved too much and trusted too deeply? You know what's worse than being betrayed? It's realizing in hindsight all the ways you betrayed yourself. All the times you silenced your intuition because you didn't want to believe what it was telling you. All the moments you made yourself smaller, quieter, more accommodating, thinking that's what love required. That I betrayed myself in so many ways for this man. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. I betrayed myself every time I went hungry so he could eat. I betrayed myself every time I worked extra hours to support his dreams while putting my own on hold. I betrayed myself every time I accepted soon, and we're still young, when I deserved commitment and clarity. That I betrayed myself every time I caught him in a lie and let him convince me I was being paranoid. Every time I saw something suspicious and talked myself out of trusting my own eyes. Every time I felt disrespected and told myself I was being too sensitive, I betrayed myself by staying when I should have left. By hoping when I should have been accepting reality. By giving when I had nothing left to give. And the hardest truth? I can't even blame him entirely. Yes, what he did was wrong. Yes, he used me and lied to me and discarded me like garbage. Yes, he is a terrible person for how he treated me. But I allowed it. Not consciously, not intentionally, but I allowed it. By staying when the red flags appeared. By accepting less than I deserved. By loving someone more than I loved myself, I taught him how to treat me. And I taught him that he could do whatever he wanted and I would still be there. That he could disrespect me and I would stay. That he could delay marriage indefinitely and I would keep waiting. That he could lie to my face and I would believe him, or at least pretend to. I showed him that I had no boundaries. That my love had no limits. That there was nothing he could do that would make me leave. And he took full advantage of that. But here's what I'm learning now, painfully, slowly. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. It's martyrdom. It's slowly erasing yourself in the hope that someone will notice and appreciate your sacrifice. But people don't appreciate what comes too easily. They don't value what they didn't have to work for. They don't respect what they can take for granted. I was too available. Too willing. Too accommodating. Too forgiving. And instead of making him love me more, it made me invisible. It made me disposable. It made me auntie. Looking back now, I can see the exact moment things shifted. It was right after he got the job. Right after my sacrifice paid off, for him, not for us, but for him. That's when I should have had a serious conversation. That's when I should have said, I've supported you through your struggles. I've invested in your success. Now I need to know, where is this relationship going? What are your intentions? Give me a timeline or let me go. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. I stayed patient. I stayed hopeful. Because I thought that's what good women do. I thought that's what love requires. I thought that sacrifice without expectation is noble. But it's not noble. It's foolish. Because people, especially people who lack integrity, will take everything you give and then look elsewhere for what they actually want. So what have I learned from all of this? What can I take away from 7 years of my life that ended in humiliation and heartbreak? First, I've learned that loyalty is not always rewarded. That being there for someone in their lowest moment doesn't guarantee they'll value you in their highest. That some people see your support not as love but as weakness. Not as partnership but as service they're entitled to. I've learned that you can do everything right and still end up with nothing. You can be faithful, supportive, sacrificial, patient, forgiving, all the things you're supposed to be, and still get your heart broken by someone who never deserved you in the first place. I've learned that time invested doesn't equal value. 7 years sounds like a lot, and it is. But it doesn't mean anything to someone who's decided you're no longer useful to them. To them, those 7 years are just ancient history. Irrelevant. Easy to walk away from. I've learned that you can't love someone into loving you back. You can't sacrifice your way into their heart. You can't prove your worth to someone who's already decided you're worthless. You can't make someone appreciate what they take for granted. I've learned that actions speak louder than words. And I should have been paying attention to his actions instead of clinging to his words. His actions showed me he wasn't serious about our future. His actions showed me I wasn't a priority. His actions showed me he was already moving on. But I focused on his words, the sweet things he would say, the promises he would make, the soonts he would feed me. Words are cheap. Actions showed truth. I've learned that I ignored my intuition at my own peril. Every time my gut told me something was wrong, it was right. Every time I had that uncomfortable feeling, that nagging suspicion, that sense that I was being played, I was correct. But I silenced that voice because I didn't want to face the truth. I wanted to believe the fantasy more than I wanted to accept reality. I've learned that you have to love yourself first. That self-love isn't selfish. It's essential. That putting yourself first isn't cruel. It's necessary. That having boundaries isn't being difficult. It's being wise. I gave everything to someone else and left nothing for myself. I poured from an empty cup. I sacrificed my well-being for someone who wouldn't sacrifice his comfort for my peace of mind. And that was my mistake. I've learned that not everyone who needs you values you. Some people see you as a resource to be used, not a partner to be cherished. They'll take what you offer and then go looking for what they actually want somewhere else. I've learned that timing matters, but so does intention. He kept saying the timing wasn't right for marriage. But the truth is, when a man really wants you, he makes it happen. He doesn't need perfect circumstances. He doesn't need to be established or wealthy or at a certain point in his career. He just needs to be sure about you. And he was never sure about me. I just refuse to see it. I've learned that sometimes the person you take a bullet for is the person behind the trigger. That the person you think is your everything is the person who thinks you're nothing. That the person you're building up is the person who will tear you down. I've learned that you can't change people. You can support them, encourage them, believe in them, sacrifice for them, but at the end of the day they are who they are. And if they're the kind of person who can use you and discard you, no amount of love from you will change that. I've learned that closure is a myth. I'll never get the apology I deserve. I'll never get the explanation I'm owed. I'll never get him to acknowledge what I did for him or admit that he was wrong. And I have to make peace with that. The only closure I'll get is the closure I give myself. But most importantly, I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I survived the worst day of my life. I'm still here, still breathing, still moving forward even when every part of me wants to give up. I'm picking up the pieces of my broken heart and trying to figure out who I am outside of this relationship. And maybe that's the real lesson. That I am more than this relationship. I am more than his perception of me. I am more than Auntie. I am a woman who loved deeply, sacrificed greatly, and deserves so much better than what I got. If you're still here, if you've stayed with me through this entire painful story, then I want to talk directly to you. Especially to the women watching this. Especially to those of you who see yourselves in my story. Maybe you're currently in a relationship where you're giving more than you're receiving. Maybe you're supporting a man who keeps promising marriage soon, but that soon never comes. Maybe you're sacrificing your needs, your dreams, your financial security for someone who hasn't shown you through actions, not words, but actions, that you're a priority. If that's you, please listen to me. Please learn from my mistakes. Please don't let my story become your story. Here's what I wish someone had told me 7 years ago. Your worth is not determined by how much you sacrifice. You don't prove your love by making yourself smaller, poorer, more tired, more empty. You don't become more valuable by giving everything away. You don't earn someone's commitment by showing them you'll stay no matter how badly they treat you. Real love doesn't require you to destroy yourself. Real partnership doesn't demand that you be the only one sacrificing. Real commitment doesn't need to be earned through years of proving yourself. Time invested is not a reason to stay. I know it's hard. I know you're thinking, but I've already given so many years. If I leave now, all that time was wasted. But let me tell you something. Staying in the wrong situation doesn't honor the time you've invested. It just wastes more time. Don't stay because you've already stayed this long. Leave because staying longer will only delay your happiness further. Don't let sunk cost fallacy keep you in a situation that's killing you slowly. Yes, 7 years is a long time. But you know what's longer? The rest of your life. Do you want to spend it with someone who doesn't value you? Or do you want to spend it finding someone who does, or even just spending it with yourself in peace? Believe actions, not words. Words are easy. I love you is easy to say. Soon we'll get married is easy to promise. You're the only one is easy to claim. But actions? Actions reveal truth. Does he prioritize you? Does he invest in the relationship? Does he make concrete plans for your future? Does he introduce you to important people in his life? Does he post about you, claim you publicly, defend you, honor you? Or does he keep you waiting? Keep you secret? Keep you uncertain? Keep you hoping? If his actions don't match his words, believe the actions. Every single time. You can't fix broken men. This is hard to accept, but it's crucial. You can't love someone into being better. You can't support someone into appreciating you. You can't sacrifice your way into their transformation. If a man is broken, immature, ungrateful, or lacks integrity, that's his work to do. Not yours. You can support him through his journey, yes, but you can't make the journey for him. And if he's not actively working on himself, if he's not showing growth, if he's not taking responsibility for his issues, nothing you do will change him. Stop trying to be someone's savior. Stop trying to prove that your love can fix them. Because when they finally do get fixed, there's a good chance they'll take their fixed self somewhere else. Just like he did to me. Set boundaries and honor them. This is the one I failed at most. I had no boundaries. I let him cross every line because I was so afraid of losing him. I accepted disrespect, lies, delays, excuses, all because I thought that's what unconditional love meant. But unconditional love doesn't mean accepting anything and everything. It doesn't mean tolerating abuse or disrespect or being taken for granted. Even unconditional love can have boundaries. You can love someone and still say, if you don't commit to me within a reasonable time frame, I'm leaving. You can love someone and still say, if you lie to me, we're done. You can love someone and still say, I deserve respect or I'm out. Boundaries aren't ultimatums. They're standards. They're you saying, this is how I expect to be treated, and if you can't meet that standard, then we're not. Your biological clock is real. I'm 40 years old. 40. And I wasted my prime reproductive years on a man who had no intention of building a family with me. If you want children, this matters. It's not shallow to consider it. It's not selfish to have a timeline. Your fertility doesn't wait for men to be ready. It doesn't pause while they figure themselves out. If marriage and family are important to you, don't let anyone make you feel wrong for having a timeline. Don't let anyone convince you that you're being pushy or impatient. You have every right to know where a relationship is going and to move on if it's not going where you need it to go. Success changes some people and you can't predict who. This is painful but true. Some people can't handle success. Some people, the moment they get a little money or status or options, they forget where they came from. They forget who helped them get there. They forget who believed in them when no one else did. You can't predict if someone will be like this until they actually get successful. But you can watch for early signs. Do they show gratitude? Do they honor their past? Do they remember people who helped them? Or do they have a history of using people and moving on? Pay attention to character. Pay attention to values. Pay attention to how they treat people who can't do anything for them. Because that's how they'll treat you once they don't need you anymore. I know some of you are thinking, but I love him. I can't just leave. What if things get better? What if I'm giving up right before the breakthrough? I understand. I really do. Because I thought all those things too. But here's what I know now. If someone really loves you, if someone really values you, if someone really sees a future with you, you won't have to beg for it. You won't have to wait years for it. You won't have to sacrifice yourself repeatedly to earn it. Real love doesn't make you feel uncertain. Real love doesn't keep you waiting indefinitely. Real love doesn't require you to destroy yourself to prove your worth. If you're constantly anxious about where you stand, if you're constantly wondering if he's really committed, if you're constantly having to prove yourself or compete for attention or accept less than you deserve, that's not love. That's suffering. And you deserve better. You deserve someone who chooses you clearly, consistently, and publicly. You deserve someone who doesn't make you guess. You deserve someone who sees your value without you having to perform or prove or sacrifice endlessly. So if you're in a situation like I was, here's what I want you to do. Have the conversation I never had. Sit him down and say, I need to know where this is going. I need a clear timeline. I need to see concrete steps forward. And if you can't give me that, I need to leave to find someone who can. And if he gives you excuses, if he gets angry that you're pressuring him, if he tries to make you feel bad for having standards and expectations, leave. Leave before you waste another day, another month, another year on someone who doesn't deserve your sacrifice. I know it's scary. I know it feels impossible. I know you might lose years of your life with this person. But I promise you, losing more years is scarier than leaving now. Being 40 and single is less scary than being 50 and realizing you wasted your entire life on the wrong person. So here I am, 40 years old, single, heartbroken, starting over from scratch. And honestly, I don't know if I'll ever fully recover from this. I don't know if I'll ever trust again. I don't know if I'll ever open my heart again. I don't even know if I want to. Right now, the thought of dating again, of being vulnerable again, of believing in love again, it all feels impossible. How do you trust your judgment when your judgment led you so wrong? How do you believe someone's words when you've learned that words mean nothing? How do you invest in another person when your last investment left you bankrupt? I don't have those answers yet. Maybe I'll never have them. Maybe I'll be that woman who stays single for the rest of her life, not because she wants to, but because she's too broken to try again. Or maybe eventually I'll heal. Maybe time really does heal all wounds, even wounds this deep. Maybe one day I'll wake up and the pain won't be the first thing I feel. Maybe one day I'll think about him and feel nothing instead of feeling everything. Maybe one day I'll even be grateful for this experience. Not grateful that it happened, but grateful for what it taught me. Grateful for the clarity it gave me. Grateful for the boundaries it forced me to develop. Grateful for the self-awareness it created. Maybe one day I'll meet someone who treats me the way I should have been treated all along, and I'll realize that what I thought was love was just trauma bonding. That what I thought was sacrifice was just self-destruction. That what I thought was devotion was just fear of being alone. But even if I never find love again, even if I spend the rest of my life single, I'll be okay. Because I'm learning something important. I don't need a man to complete me. I don't need a relationship to validate me. I don't need someone else's love to prove that I'm worthy of love. I'm learning to be enough for myself. To value myself the way I valued him. To invest in myself the way I invested in him. To believe in myself the way I believed in him. I'm learning that the love I was so desperately trying to give to someone else, I should have been giving to myself first. That the energy I spent trying to build someone else up, I should have used to build myself up. That the grace I extended so freely to someone who didn't deserve it, I should extend to myself. I'm learning that being alone is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Being with the wrong person is worse. Being disrespected is worse. Being taken for granted is worse. Being called auntie in your own relationship is worse. And you know what? Maybe that's the real message of my story. Not that love is bad or that sacrifice is wrong, or that you shouldn't support your partner. But that you have to love yourself first. That you have to maintain your identity, your boundaries, your self-worth even when you're in a relationship. Especially when you're in a relationship. Because if you lose yourself trying to love someone else, what's left when they leave? Who are you when they're gone? I lost myself in that relationship. I became so focused on him, on his needs, on his dreams, on his success that I forgot about my own. I forgot who I was outside of being his supporter. I forgot what I wanted outside of wanting him. And now I have to rediscover myself. I have to figure out who I am when I'm not pouring everything into someone else. I have to remember what I like, what I want, what my dreams are. It's terrifying. But it's also kind of exciting. Because for the first time in 7 years, I'm free to focus on myself. I'm free to invest in my own dreams. I'm free to build my own life without considering someone. So if you take nothing else from my story, take this. You are enough. Right now as you are enough. You don't need to sacrifice yourself to be worthy of love. You don't need to fix or save or build up someone else to prove your value. You don't need to erase yourself to make room for someone else. Love yourself first. Honor yourself. Respect yourself. Set boundaries. Have standards. Expect reciprocity. Demand respect. And if someone can't give you those things, let them go. Don't wait 7 years like I did. Don't sacrifice yourself like I did. Don't lose yourself like I did. Because you deserve better. You deserve someone who sees your worth without you having to prove it. You deserve someone who commits to you without years of delays. You deserve someone who treats you like a priority, not like auntie. You deserve real love. Not the kind that requires you to destroy yourself. But the kind that builds you up, honors you, cherishes you. Thank you for staying with me through this long, painful story. Thank you for allowing me this space to share my heartbreak. Thank you for listening when I needed to be heard. I don't know what happens next for me. I don't know if this pain will ever fully go away. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust and love again. But I know I'll survive. As I survived yesterday. And that means I can survive today. And tomorrow. And every day after that. One day at a time. One breath at a time. One moment at a time. And maybe one day this pain will turn into wisdom. Maybe one day my story will help another woman avoid the same heartbreak. Maybe one day I'll look back at this moment and be grateful for how it transformed me, even though right now all I feel is broken. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you been through something similar? What advice would you give to someone in my position? What would you have done differently? And if this story touched you in any way, if it resonated with you, if it helped you see something more clearly about your own situation, please share it. Because somewhere out there, there's a woman who needs to hear this before she makes the same mistakes I did. Somewhere out there, there's someone who's currently in the position I was in, giving everything and hoping it will be enough. Let this be a warning. Let this be a lesson. Let this be a reminder that you deserve better. Until next time, take care of your heart. Protect your peace. Love yourself first. And never, ever accept being called auntie in your own relationship. What would you do in this situation? Comment below. Have you experienced something similar? Share your story. Subscribe for more real-life stories. Protect your heart. You deserve better. Remember, real love doesn't require you to destroy yourself.